In the summer of 2019, Hornby MK2F coaches started to become available to modellers. In this video we're going to look at the Hornby MK2 coaches in the British Rail Blue-Grey livery and ask the following questions. Will they work for filling out existing Hornby MK2E rakes? Are they a good option for building a new MK2F rake? Are they suitable for mixing with Bachmann MK2F stock? Let's find out the answers. Okay, thanks for joining today. Here's what we're going to go through for today's session. We're going to take a look at the overview of the range of these coaches, and we'll take a closer look. Particularly we're going to take a look at what's changed since the MK2Es. We'll get into the colour matching, and here we're going to do a colour match against the previous MK2Es and also the latest Bachmann MK2Fs. And then we'll wrap this up with a scoring and recommendations in terms of answering those questions I posed at the very start of the video. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is take a look just at an overview of the range. So there are 6 coaches in all in the blue and grey livery, and this differs from the previous MK2Es. So there are duplicates for each of the main coach types. There's 2 different running numbers for the TSO, for the first open and for the brake second open, and that just gives you a little bit more variety, I suppose, in terms of running numbers than you would have had previously. In terms of the mechanical characteristics, nothing of surprise here, using standard NEM couplings with metal wheels. I haven't seen if there's a railroad equivalent of these, but the railroad equivalents would typically have plastic wheels. The overall length of the carriage is 268 millimeters, and the unboxed weight is 128 grams. And that's a good bit lighter than say its Bachmann equivalent, for example, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. These come from Era 7, covering that range of time from 1972 to 1986. The recommended retail price from Hornby is $34.95, and that is kind of an increase, and typically this is selling for $31.50. So these are more expensive coaches than their predecessors. You would have picked it up a lighted version of this coach for that sort of price previously. So we have seen a general increase in price here. So really, what's changed since the MK2Es? So as we'll see on the next couple of pictures, we'll see that the undercarriage has changed on both sides of the coach, and this is really where the new tooling has come into play, and this to give us an undercarriage aligned with the MK2F. There's a slight change in the overall grey colour along the side of the coach, and we'll take a look at this in more detail as we go through. In the next section we look at the colour matching versus the previous MK2Es and the Bachmann coaches. There's a slightly darker coloured toilet window, really not that significant. Obviously with these new coach types there's new running numbers, and as I mentioned there's 2 variants per coach type. The roof, upper body and the coach ends are unchanged, and we'll kind of look through those. Really no difference here, so these are absolutely identical to the previous MK2Es. And so overall, when you take a look at one of these coaches, you really don't see a difference, and it's only when you look at the underbody you do see the new detail there. The bogies are unchanged as well, and for these MK2EF coaches there's no lighting option. So the previous MK2Es did have a version of the coach that had lights. Unfortunately we don't have that option here with these MK2Fs. Okay, first up we're going to take a look at the new MK2Fs from Hornby against the older MK2Es from Hornby, and just to take a look at this from both a riding height perspective and the colour match perspective. So as you can see, these are at the same riding height, so which you would expect. Nothing has changed from the MK2Es really fundamentally from a mechanical perspective, so you would expect these to be identical, which they are. From a colour perspective they are more or less identical. There is a slight difference. So the new MK2F is on the left hand side, the MK2E is on the right, and there is a different shade in terms of the grey. It's a lighter grey, and that is noticeable. It's probably not an issue in a mixed rake environment, and if you're actually running a rake of both of these coaches, that's not a significant difference, and I don't think it's going to be something that should put you off from a mixed rake, but there is a slight difference there. There has been a change, and also the toilet window there is a darker grey than the grey on the older MK2E. So fundamentally, there isn't a major difference. These coaches can be run together, and so you're creating a mixed rake shouldn't be an issue, albeit the underbodies are different. They're MK2F coaches, so the underbody detail, as we looked at previously, is a little bit different, but there shouldn't be an issue. So next we're going to take a look at running this with, say, a Bachmann coach, and here we're running it with an equivalent Bachmann TSO coach. So first thing in here is the ride height of the Bachmann coach is slightly higher, as you can see. It's of the order of about a millimetre and a half in the difference, but that really isn't significant in the main. That's not significant enough to make this an issue if you were running a mixed rake of these. The issue is really the colour match of the blue, and also the grey as well is off also. So both of those are a mismatch, and I think they're quite a mismatch in the case of the blue, and I really think this is a bit of a killer if you're going to attempt to run a mixed rake of these. The roof is also different as well, so you've really got quite a difference between these two coaches, and you can see it there in detail. Obviously, depending on your lighting conditions, etc., these can look different, but under no circumstances are they ever going to be close. So unfortunately, this is an issue on two fronts. One, if you wanted to, say, bring one of the Bachmann coaches, and in particular the buffet car, back to run with your marked 2F rake of Hornby coaches, that's going to look out of place. Or if you want to go the other way around and run a mixed rake of, say, some of these coaches with the other Bachmann coaches and, say, a 50-50 kind of rake of both coaches, again, that's not going to work because of the mismatch in colour. There's also different in terms of the window tint, so there's a slightly stronger tint on the Hornby coaches than on the Bachmann coaches. That comes into play when you actually put some lighting into the coach. You get a brighter lighting effect out of the Bachmann coaches than you do out of the Hornby ones because of the stronger tint on the Hornby coaches. So I suppose this for me is probably the real killer with these coaches. The Bachmann is prototypical, it is more aligned to the prototype. The Hornby isn't, and unfortunately that is the case, and this is a real killer with this particular coach. Okay, in terms of looking at them all side by side, you can get a feel for all three coach types here, and really again it's a question that the MK2E and the MK2Fs from Hornby are more or less the same, but are quite different from their Bachmann equivalent. And just looking again at another angle of that, and I'll just give you a flavour for that difference and how it looks, which is unfortunate. I do have a couple of a reference to a video in the description, which does have a running session with a mixed rake of these coaches, so you can actually see what that looks like. So please take a look at that offline if you are considering mixing these. So really, in summary, really what are we looking at here? So running performance for these coaches is good. It was for the previous MK2Es. It's the same score, and there is no issue. A rake of these coaches, they do perform well, albeit they are a little bit on the light side, so you do get a little bit more movement on the track, which is a little bit less than realistic. So the heavier coach does give a better performance from a running performance perspective. So the Bachmann coaches I would score higher. I do have a separate review on those. They would score higher under this because they have the extra weight. The appearance and detail. So why am I giving this a 3? Really, this is a follow-on from the discussion we had regarding the colour matching. These coaches are not prototypical from a colour perspective. They are too dark, and they don't align with the prototype. This has always been really an issue for me with these Hornby coaches, and they really aren't aligned from a prototypical perspective, and hence it's very hard to recommend them for a new rake. Understand that they are aligned with the older colour that Hornby would have had, so if you have a previous rake of MK2Es, they will match the colour. But I really, for somebody buying net new a blue-grey coach, I cannot recommend them. I really just can't, because that difference in colour is it's a bit annoying, and I suppose it's been there for the last few years with Hornby with these coaches, and it's still there. Extras, there really isn't a lot of extras here. For example, with the Bachmann MK2Fs, the non-DCC versions, you still get a comprehensive detailing pack. You still get the powering of the actual bogies is there, so you can connect to that if you actually want to add your own lighting. That's in place. So there are more extras on those coaches. The pricing, I'm giving it a 4-star. It's between 4-star and 3.5-star. The prices have gone up. I think $34.95 is a bit on the pricey side for a Mark II coach. It's equivalent to a Mark III coach in terms of pricing. I would have seen the Mark III coaches as having a higher price, or should have a higher price differential. So it seems a little bit expensive to me for this type of coach from Hornby, a coach at this level. It's kind of just edging into that higher bracket without having the extras that you'd expect from a more expensive coach. So I'm showing it a 4-star because they're still competitively priced relative to the Bachmanns, but it is kind of edging into a higher price range. And I suppose, as I said, I think there really should be a price differential between a Mark II and a Mark III. I do think the Mark IIIs have a higher specification, and as such, and they're larger coaches physically, I think a higher price for those is to be expected. Overall, I'm giving this a 3-star for this particular color variation of the Mark II-F from Hornby. And again, that's really primarily down to the appearance and detail and an accumulation of the other items on this particular list. So the final comments is these are okay, and if you've got an existing rake of Mark IIEs and you're short in particular of, say, the TSO coach, which a lot of people would be in building up a decent rake, then these are okay to make up the numbers. I don't think they warrant replacing your existing Mark IIe rake by no means. You're really not getting an awful lot of extras here. It is just the underbody detail, and I think a mixed rake makes a lot more sense, particularly at the higher price that you're going to pay here. And if you're having to sell your own older rake on eBay, you're not going to get that price when you resell those older coaches. So I think it's okay for doing an upgrade of, as I say, an existing IIe rake. I can't really recommend it because of the color mismatch in terms of a new rake. Now I know you've got to look at a more expensive Bachmann option, but I just think that's a better option if being more authentic and aligned with the prototype is important to you. In terms of a mixed rake with the Bachmann stock, the color match is a killer, which is a pity because, for example, the buffet car only available from Bachmann, and it would be nice to be able to add that back into a Hornby rake, but that's just not going to work for this particular color. It does work for the executive livery, and I have covered that in a separate review, but it doesn't work here. So a mixed rake really isn't going to work because of that color mismatch that you've got. And also the last point here is the price has crept up, and I think it's edging a little bit on the pricey side for the level of coach that you're getting. So the final item summary here really is to review before buying. I can't recommend these. I think you've got to look at them and consider for yourself if it makes sense. If you want to upgrade an existing rake, I think that's absolutely fine. But if you want to buy them net new, I think for a new rake, then I think look at the options first before buying and make your decision then in knowing all the facts. Okay. So I hope you found this review useful. I don't like being negative about the Hornby range. I am half of my stock is Hornby, and I'm a fan for many years, but I just think this blue and grey coach, it's a missed opportunity, I think, from Hornby. They could have addressed the colour issue, maybe put a little bit of additional weight into the coach to give it a better feel and a better running performance, and for pretty well no extra cost you'd have a nicer coach and a coach that I could give a much better recommendation to. So for me, this is a missed opportunity from Hornby. It's a pity. I do have a separate review on the Intercity executive livery coaches. From a colour match perspective, they are better, and I cover that in a separate review. Okay, thanks for joining today's video. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please hit the subscribe button now, and I have a lot more videos coming up. As I say, I do have a separate video of this coming up. I do have a couple of links in the description as well of running sessions with these coaches, so you can actually see them in action in actually the Mark IIe coaches, but they're the exact same colors, including a mixed rake with the Bachmanns, so you can get to see what the different colors in the same rake actually look like from a mismatch perspective. Okay, I hope to see you on one of these videos in the near future. So thanks for watching today, and happy modeling.